Baby, can't you hear my call? I can't stand.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Sims. This is another edition of the Hey Now podcast, and we're really excited to have a guy who's, he's on the front burner here in New York City, front burner in the world of baseball, win or lose. Aaron Boone joins us. We're going to reflect on his multi-generational baseball legacy, the unforgettable home run that he hit in the ALCS back in 2003, going from player to broadcasting, and being the lead dog in one of the most scrutinized sports teams on the planet, not just here in U.S. of A. Joined by Jarrett and Jordan, my sons. Jordan, good to have you back after slogging along the old, master's degree trail. Good for you. Good to have you back, looking good. Boonie, welcome, man. Appreciate you giving us some time. We're really excited to have you on.
Yeah,
you look
it's
like
great.
You're ready
It's
to go.
great.
You look like you're ready for opening day, man.
I am. It's moving day here at Yankee Stadium, so the truck leaves today. So a lot of people in, a lot of people here early in the morning getting that truck loaded, and I had to get my stuff on there as well. So, it's about that time.
It's exciting. Let me start with the family. Your family heritage in baseball is unbelievable. I mean, your grandpa was a hell of a player. Ray Boone, hell of a player in Detroit, among one of his stops. And your father, World Series champion with the Phillies, 1980.
That's right.
The Phillies are world. I can hear Harry now. Each game, the Phillies are world champion.
Yeah.
And then your brother Brett, I know him from being out in Seattle and everything. Give me an idea what the young Aaron Boone baseball family. What was that like?
Well, I tell people all the time, and I would tell this all the way growing up, like I had the greatest childhood ever. And now that I'm 51 years old, it rings very true. Like I grew up in a clubhouse, and back then in the 70s, I was born in 1973. My dad got to the big leagues in September of 72. So, and then he retired my senior year of high school. So it's all I knew growing up. And fortunately I had a dad and that took us all the time. I was at the ballpark all the time. Brett and I were at the ballpark all the time. And then later my little brother Matt was, we're at the ballpark all the time. And the Phillies were amazing at allowing us to be there and allowing us to, we were in uniform shagging during BP. I would watch the game with the grounds crew behind home plate in my uniform, it was an amazing way to grow up. He played on a lot of great teams, those Philly teams you mentioned that, finally kind of came of age in 76, 77, 78, couldn't get over the hump, some heartbreaking championship series losses, finally breaking through in 1980 when it was kind of, the end of their run a little bit, that group, that core of player that came through, although they got back with a little bit of a different group in 83. And then on to the Angels where he played on some more really good teams, a couple of heartbreaking championship series losses too. But, he played with a lot of great players on a lot of great teams and he shared it with us and we went along for the ride with him. And it certainly, I think played a big role in shaping us.
Did he tell you, your dad tell you guys, you and your brothers, about your grandfather and his days when he played and everything?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, so my grandfather was a big part of our life. He died about, I think 20 years ago now it's been, which it's amazing. It's been that long. But all the way up until I'm actually looking at a picture on my wall of the 2003 All-Star game where it's a picture of me on the National League team, my grandpa, who was still scouting till the day he died. He died about a year later. Brett with the American League team, and my dad, who was managing me in Cincinnati. It's a picture of us on the field at U.S. Cellular, one of my favorite pictures. But my grandfather was a huge part of our life. And we used to, have arguments all the time, like.
About what? What'd you argue about?
Oh, so my grandpa grew up in San Diego, and right after Ted Williams. So my grandpa, my grandpa's a product of the Depression, and tells us those stories of
Yeah, I know those.
Going to school with a sandwich, trading with a Mexican kid that would come with a burrito, and he'd want to trade with them all the time. But one of the things they did was Ted Williams, even at that point, was, a god to them. They would, after school, they would go watch Ted Williams play baseball. I don't know how much younger my grandfather is, maybe 3, 4, 5 years, but they looked up to Ted Williams was the man in San Diego, and then obviously goes on to have that career. So a lot of times, we get into, Brett and I would have a lot of fun with them. You start talking eras, right? When you're growing up, and when I played, Ted Williams and Bob Feller and da da da. We only had this many teams, and I'm like, well, for the first half of your career, there were no black players in the league. The United States was half as populated. Latin America hadn't been infused yet, really, in Major League Baseball. So I'm like, Gramps, pump the brakes a little bit. But we used to have a lot of fun with those conversations. Baseball was obviously has been our livelihood, and something that always brought us together, and that we could relate to one another in. And for me, like going through a career and playing, having a brother playing at the same time, having a dad in the game and that played for so long, and my grandfather, like, to have family members that can absolutely relate to what you go through on a daily basis,
Oh,
was something that I cherished.
What was your relationship like with your older brother growing up in the clubhouse? Where you, I assume you guys were ultra competitive. Like
Yeah,
Jared's 4 years older than me, and we I think that age gap was a little too big for us to be competing at the same time at the same level, but we were still very competitive. So I'm curious what your relationship was like growing up.
yeah. So probably very similar, actually. So Brett and I are 4 years apart, just like you guys.
Mm, okay.
I will say, when we were still living in Jersey, we lived there through the fifth grade for me. So I lived there basically. I was born in San Diego. From time I was a baby, we were in Jersey. So I went through fifth grade. First 10, 11 years of my life were there. Brett was a great older brother, in that he drugged me with him wherever he went. So I always feel like it helped shape my sports life a little bit, because I was playing with older kids in the neighborhood
Yeah.
all, and you better figure it out if you want to,
Hmm.
like, and sometimes you get clobbered, but it also probably helped develop me athletically. So whether we were playing basketball or dunk ball or Nerf football in the street or baseball or wiffle ball, whatever, like I had to step it up if I was going to hang. So that was big. But like you said, I think from once we got into middle school and high school and college, we weren't as competitive with one another, because of the gap in age and where we were. So I think we're always just kind of rooted for each other and supported one another. Um, you know, got to play with each other when I first got to the big leagues for the first year and a half of my big league career, which was awesome. Um, but at that point, it was more supportive brothers.
yeah, that's a great story. And I know Brett's in the podcast business. I know when I
Yeah.
left some in Seattle, it goes on his last year or something.
Quick story on when we were in Jersey growing up, and those stories. So we used to box, he and I would wear the headgear, and he'd go no headgear. And we used to box throughout the house. It was like, I was a big Rocky Apollo Creed fan. I got Apollo Creed sits on my desk. He's like,
I love that.
I love the Apollo Creed. Anyway, so we
Nice,
box, right?
nice.
And and one time I got him pretty good, and then and then to where it, like, set him off a little bit, got his attention, and he beat me up pretty good. And I start crying a little bit. I'm probably 6, he's probably 10, and he's like, "Stop crying, you're gonna get us in trouble. Mom's gonna be, whatever." And
Sounds familiar.
I'm thinking, we're gonna get in trouble. You just beat up your little brother, like, you're getting in trouble. But no, we used to box a lot throughout the house. That was one of the things we did.
What drew you to Apollo Creed?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I have my sports heroes growing up. Like, I probably told you, Mo Cheeks is my all time. Maurice Cheeks with
Oh,
the Sixers. That's like my guy. That's who I loved growing up. And in a similar way, though, Apollo Creed was my guy too. I can't tell you why, other than I love the Rockies. I mean, I love Rocky too, but like Apollo and was just, so when he passed away last year, I got that figure for my desk here. I got actually have a signed picture of him in my basement. I don't know. I just was an Apollo Creed guy. I loved his athleticism, the jab, how he moved. He had a
I
wet.
tell you what, he did as good an Ali impression as you can imagine, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's basically it was built, it was built on Ali.
Yes.
And Carl Weathers was a terrific actor, man.
So good. I like great
Yeah,
actor.
he played in the league.
Yeah, played in the league. Yeah. I cried when he died in Rocky 4.
Yeah, you weren't alone.
Yeah. And then all the creeds I love too. The creed spin, whatever you call it. Like I think those have been unbelievable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Me being a Philly guy, I shed a tear a few times when I watched, when Michael B. Jordan came out with his stuff. I was like, oh my God, I started losing it there.
So I'm not going to the Super Bowl. So I went to all 3 of the playoff games.
Nice.
And Howie Roseman reached out to me yesterday and said, "Do you need anything in New Orleans?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm in Tampa. I'll be watching." And I sent him a gif of Adrian just saying, when she's laying there, win. So that's what I need.
All right, since you brought it up, we got to talk Eagles. We're going to talk Yankees, but hey, fly Eagles fly. And I had a good time talking to you as you were getting ready for the playoff game a couple of weeks ago. You were pretty pumped.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the things about, obviously I grew up an Eagles fan and, you know, getting this job moved the family back to the Northeast, so it's kind of, you know, upped upped my fandom a little bit because it's obviously the off season. I can get there easy enough. A couple of my kids are like all in with it, so it's kind of been a fun thing to do with family over the last several years. Some of our funnest weekends or days have been like sharing that with the family, and obviously they've had a good run here of some really good teams. So it's just been a lot of fun.
How many games you go to this year?
I went to 5 this year.
Good for you.
That's the most by far. I went to 2 regular season games and then I went to all 3 playoff games.
That NFC Championship game, the vibe in there, I think was unmatched, right?
Yeah, I mean it's awesome. Like I'm such a sucker for the beginning of it when they do play the Rocky music. I mean it's just like goosebumps and here we go, and you know Philly fans a little bit of a different a different breed. Um, and it's funny, I'm down there. I always tell people, I'm like, it's funny when they see me, the Philly fan, if they recognize me and they try to see it's like a 10-second, 15-second, their brain processing like what they're seeing, like, go Birds. Like, it just gets to that. It's like, wait a minute, I hate you.
Yeah.
No, what are you doing here? Oh, go Birds.
I'm sure you've encountered a bunch of Yankee fans who are also either Jet or Giants fans. I'm curious because my dad will now have to encounter that too. With he's clearly proudly an Eagles fan, but certainly repping the Yankees. How should he deal with those guys?
You guys are getting me to talk about it right now. I'm usually a little reluctant to talk too much about it.
You're among friends here. Come on.
Yeah. So, it's compartmentalized, right? It's
Yeah,
over
no lie.
here. You know, but unlike a real Eagles fan or whatever, like I want the Giants to get good. I want the Jets to get good. And I've met, you meet people within the sports world that, come out to the stadium or whatever. So I'm pulling for their success, frankly. Um, because obviously it's been a little bit of a rough go for those 2 teams for a while now. So I'm hoping they get back to hopefully where they should be and really good. And for the Jets, I'm excited about their new hire, and hopefully the Giants can do some good things and get back to where they belong.
Lastly on the Eagles, what has to happen for them to win? What do you see? what has to happen?
First off, I think they're better. I think they're the better team. Now, you can't discount the Chiefs' pedigree and who they are, and Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo.
Yeah,
You're
Kelsey.
going to have to beat them, right? You're going to have to beat them. That said, I think it's I think as good an Eagles team, talent wise and well rounded as I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately it's going to come down to Jalen having to have a good night and having to make some plays because, with 2 weeks to prepare, the Chiefs' defense is good. I think they're going to do all they can to slow down Saquon. And while I think the Commanders had that plan too, I don't think the Commanders had the chops that the Chiefs do to actually pull that off. So I think if they try and take him away, I think they can slow him down a little bit probably, and it's going to be incumbent on Jalen to make plays, and he's capable of that. They have the weapons to make him pay if you want to sell out for something. But we'll see. It should be a good game, but I
Yeah.
think the Eagles have a real shot because I think they're ultimately more talented.
And he had a very good game against them in the Super Bowl a couple of years
Yes,
ago.
he
in the Super
did.
Bowl. Wasn't like he was really good. So
One play away. How he picks up the blitz, how the O-line handles the blitz, I think is everything.
I agree because that's been a little bit of a struggle. As good as their line is, like some pressures have given them some trouble, and then obviously that's partly on Jalen and making a good read and decision.
We had 0 sacks last time in the Super Bowl. We have Jalen Carter now, so.
And we'll have a controlled track. That track last
Oh, that's right.
and
That's right.
I people just say it's Philly fans griping or whatever, Eagles fans griping, but that team, unlike this team, the team from 2 years ago, which was obviously really good too, but probably had a better overall pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
You watch that game; they were slipping around the edges all game long on that trip in Arizona. That won't be the case. Now they don't have. Now, while I think this team is better than the one 2 years ago, that pass rush was a little bit better. This team's better on all three levels of defense.
Yeah,
And the balance of run and pass on offense, I think they have it all. But yeah, hopefully they get home a couple times.
Well, I tell you what, Tom Brady and Tony Romo better watch out. Your breakdowns are good, man.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Hey, let's get back to baseball. I want to go back at Cincy. So 7 years there. Give me an idea. You come out of SC, now you're with Cincinnati. Walk us through that time period.
Man, I loved it. I look back and thankful I got drafted by them. Had a really good minor league experience. Played in some good places on good teams. Moved I got signed, played my short season year in Billings, Montana. Was awesome. A great experience. Went to Winston-Salem the next year in High A for my first full season. And then Chattanooga for Double A, which was a great experience. And then Indianapolis, which at the time was the first year of the new stadium. So just played on good teams with good players, just good experience. And then got to, establish myself and build a career in Cincinnati, and a place that's really special to me. A lot of people that I became close to in the organization, kind of entrenched with, owned my first home there. Ended up getting married. I didn't meet Laura in Cincinnati, but getting married at the tail end of my stay in Cincinnati. But just I love the city. I love the town. I love how much they love baseball, how much they love the Reds, how much they care about it. It was a great experience for me, and a lot of fond memories.
Who were some of your mentors in like when you're coming up, Cincy?
Barry Larkin, that was my guy. So Barry was, obviously my brother was already in the big leagues with them when I was kind of coming through, and then I got to play with him for the last in my first couple call-ups, and then when I really became the starting third baseman in the second half of '98, I got to play 60 games with my brother at second base, so that was very cool. But Barry was my guy. Barry, like, you know, I knew him when I was coming up through the minor leagues pretty well because of my brother, right? And my
Right.
brother at the time was living in Orlando where Barry was. So we'd work out in the off season. He was just a really great mentor, leader. He was the captain.
Yeah.
And then when I came up, we became very close, and playing next to him for several years was awesome. But he was my guy who really showed me the ropes. We had in '99 was my funnest year ever in the game of baseball. Little league, high school, college, pro, whatever. 1999 is the funnest year I've ever had playing baseball. We won 96 games. We lost the 1-game playoff with the Mets when Al Leiter came to Cincinnati and shoved on us. But we had this amazing mix of veteran players and like guys. That was my first full year. Pokey Reese's first full year. Sean Casey's first full year, where we all kind of established ourselves. Danny Graves, and then we had these awesome veteran guys like Lark was still a great player. We brought in Greg Vaughn, Greg Vaughn was such a good leader and presence in our.
He could hit,
and he hit 48 homers. We had Mike Cameron, who kind of established himself in that year as well. So we just had we had so much fun playing together and such a great group. And but Greg Vaughn was a big presence in our clubhouse, bringing him in from San Diego that year. But definitely the funnest year I've had playing.
What's one story from that time that you remember like vividly? Some of the most fun you had, or just being with that team, those guys?
So another guy on that team that was like our fourth outfielder that had a great year for us that played a lot too was Michael Tucker. So our outfield was Mike Cameron, Greg Vaughn, and then a mix of like Jeffrey Hammonds, Michael Tucker, Dimitri Young, right?
Wow, meat hook.
Yeah, it was we were all so close, man. It was just such a close team. We did everything together, like away from the field, at the field, got in trouble off the field. I mean, we were, nuts. But it was just a really close knit team. One of the things I used to always, Jeffrey Hammonds and I used to sit on the plane and just have these great conversations. He's kind of that,
Hamo.
low key, Stanford, real smart, real thoughtful, but just kind of smooth brother. We'd sit on the plane and he liked to throw his wisdom at me, but he was awesome. But so that year we invented, and I got to give Jeffrey Hammonds this credit. We invented what you see now, like when there's a walk off and you see guys like come out and they start bouncing. We originated that in Cincinnati, and that was Jeffrey Hammonds. We used to do that because we had so many walk-off wins that year, and that's where it started. The bounce, we called it the bounce, and we just bounce. And now you see teams do that all the time, but that's where it began. I got to give Jeffrey Hammonds the credit.
Barry Larkin, you said so. Lark, as a mentor, you can have few better mentors. He was your OG. Is there something that you take and impart to the guys that you are now, the manager of the Yankees, that has helped you and helped the team?
He used to call it tough love. He had tough love. So he ran Kangaroo Court back in the day. We'd have Kangaroo Court, right? And he was in charge of that. And he used to find me and I'm making the minimum, and we got guys making money, and he was just like guilty. I'd be like, what are we doing, Lark? I didn't. And he would just do that to me. And he called it tough love, but he also, we hung all the time, and he just took such good care of me. But I don't know. I mean, just hope. I think he embodied and showed you how to relate to a lot of people. Obviously, I wasn't a superstar like him, but he just had this way of connecting with everyone that came in. He made everyone feel a part of it and involved and important. Kind of much like Aaron Judge does with us now. Like, you get the guy up from the minor leagues, like Lark had a way of making them feel settled and comfortable. Aaron does the same thing. And I've always tried to have that kind of, in my own way, the same kind of approach to making our clubhouse a place that people want to be and people can be themselves and are comfortable. And Lark showed me the way a lot in that.
I hear a lot of stories about that over the years because everybody has to have a mentor. But give me more. Is there more specific things you can that works on a major league level when you're welcoming a dude in? Because he's first time up. The eyes are like yo big. And, what are some of the things you do to calm a dude down and get him into his game and just get him comfortable?
I always say, look, I treat every guy differently. It's my job. It's our job to, tap into people. Doesn't mean we always get it right, but hopefully you're able to kind of read and connect with people on a level that allows them to be at their best and feel comfortable. Obviously there's guidelines and there's rules and there's things that everyone's got to fall into, but at the same time, we want you to feel like you can walk in here and be yourself and welcome that. And, Judgy does a great job with that. There's a standard, there's an expectation. But I would say, for being the Yankees and being New York, and sometimes that thought can be overwhelming for guys. I think for the most part, people that come into our organization, whether it's say from a trade during the season or in the off season signing or a rookie coming up for the first time, I'd like to think that, our place is pretty welcoming and in short order, they can kind of get as comfortable as you can.
Yeah. I was thinking about all the stories I've heard over the years about guys buying somebody a suit and taking them out to dinner, and that stuff that kind of stuff still rocks, right?
Yeah, so that was when I played. That was like the big thing. Like I feel like especially you come to New York, guys would take you out and they'd buy the young guys suits, right? Or I'm assuming on some level that still happens. I think it looks a little different because we don't wear suits as much. When I was coming up and playing, like you wore a suit and tie on the plane, or at least a suit or something. Now it's changed a lot. So I think guys still take care of one another and still take care of the young guys in different ways. But I don't know if when I played, it was definitely like, let's go get you some suits.
Hey, Jordan, are you thinking of Paulie and Christopher? Where in Sopranos, it's Christopher's low man and he has to pay for meals. Does that happen in a clubhouse where the young guys will have to pick up the tab?
He'd make me and Dunner pay all the time. Me and Adam Dunn, Junior too. Griffey and Lark would make Adam Dunn and I pay like we were multimillionaires when we were still in the hundreds. We're still making the minimum.
And you were making the minimum then.
He acted like we were on their level.
What was that like when Junior came over to the squad? And what was your relationship with him?
Yeah, it was great. He was man. I mean, it was just so big. I remember where I was when it went down, and part of me was sad because who'd we trade? Cam and Brett Tomko, and Mike Cameron. I tell people all the time is like my go-to answer for who's your favorite all-time teammate. I go probably Mike Cameron.
I believe it.
He's just talk about a connector and a guy that could connect with everyone from every walk of life, like just and just that perfect balance of like gamer, serious to like the funniest guy too, and kept guys loose, brought an energy to the ballpark every day that was you fed off of. So I really was sad to see Cam go because he was such a big part of that 99 team where so many of us young players, like I said, me, Casey, Pokey, Cam, all kind of came of age together. But so I was in some way sad, but I remember sitting, I was with some buddies. We were renting in Manhattan Beach, and I remember watching on TV when it broke that Jim Bowden was bringing Junior home. He said the winter meetings were in Orlando, and he went to Disney World to bring back Ken Griffey Jr. So it was awesome. I mean, it brought so much attention to our team. But Junior was awesome, man. He was a great teammate, great guy. Um, someone that I got to be pretty close with. We actually lived in the same building. He had a condo just above me, and he could look down into my condo. So we had a lot of fun playing together. Still someone that I'm in contact with, and it was a lot of fun.
And looking at your face, and you must have had a lot of laughs because I can see you're going through in your face, and you got this smile just mentioning, thinking about Junior. You
Yeah, I
must have
mean,
had a
I
ton of
could just hear
laughs.
his voice being silly, like, no, man, like with his big black crate, that or the trunk that he took everywhere with him with all the stuff in
Right.
there. Yeah, he was great. It was just between Adam Dunn and Austin Kearns and Juan Castro and Lark and Griff, we spent a lot of time together on and off the field.
What was it like being managed by your father?
Yeah.
Because our dad knew what he was talking about, but when I was playing basketball, I would start shooting from like 25 feet out, and he'd be like, no, layups, Mike and drill, and I didn't want to hear it. And I had to be, I would listen to other coaches, and I think my dad would tell them what he thought I should work on, and then have them impart it to me. What was it like being managed by your father?
Yeah, it was great. Fortunately, he became the manager when I was kind of already established, so it made it a little easier. Like, I was established on the team, probably one of the team leaders. So the one thing I always wanted, I never wanted a teammate, because ultimately, at some point, somebody on the team is going to be mad at the manager on a given day, whatever it was, and I never wanted them to not feel like they could not speak freely around me if they're ticked off about something or whatever. And so I never felt that way, which is what I wanted. And at the end of the day, like, whether you agreed or disagreed in a moment of the season that's going to happen with a manager, like, my dad's a really good dude, so that kind of carried the day. But it was great, having your dad there, your mom, living there. I talked earlier about having family members that you could relate to. Having your family around right there was pretty cool, and something that obviously not a lot of people have experienced. But he was a great manager, great guy, and I enjoyed playing for him, and he made it easy on me. Like, he wasn't any different with me. Like, he wasn't harder on me. He wasn't easier. He was just, I was one of his players, and that was that. But had a dad away from the field around all the time.
That's awesome. Every team I've ever played on, there was always somebody
Mhm.
who did it best, but would impersonate the coach. Is there anybody on the Yankees, on your club, that does that for you? And when you played for your dad, all his mannerisms. Did you impersonate him?
Well, I probably have a lot of his mannerisms, so I'm probably impersonating him on accident all the time. I don't know if anyone does me. Not, at least not to my face, or I would love for them to, because I'm always impersonating people. So I would love for people to show me what they got if they have it. I wouldn't take it personal. Adam Dunn tells a story that I can't get into too much, but my dad would come in and after a game and with a glass of wine or something and start talking hitting with Dunner, and he'd get in behind him and start showing him the hip torque that he's looking for, and Dunner would tell this story like, Bob, what are you doing? So that's what I think of when you ask me that, was him helping Adam Dunn with his hitting and his nothing but sliding shorts and a glass of wine.
Yeah, it sounded Canella did stuff like that too.
Yeah.
To Apollo Creed, that's like Carl Weathers in Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
It's all in the hit.
It's all in the hip.
If somebody does you, somebody has said, my guys are effing savages out there. That was one of the great recorded tirades live during the game. I was like, I was back in Seattle. I was like, my man, go ahead. That was great.
Yeah. Well, you'll have a front row seat this year to some of those. So,
Yeah.
so buckle up. No, I'm getting better.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm gonna have less this year. That's my goal.
Coming to the Yankees, you know, the killer 2002 year, you coming to the Yankees. And let me just say this real quick. When you hit that home run to put them in, I was doing a Clemson NC State game on ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I hear this noise behind me. It was a cameraman who was a Boston fan. He's shooting our game, listening to the game, and his camera dropped. He turned around and banged his head on the wall. And during the break, I said, "What happened?" He says, "Aaron effing Boone just hit a home run, knocked his son."
Wow. So, I mean, that's a cool little story right there. And one of the cool things about that I've really grown to appreciate over the years is how many small little intimate stories like that people have. Like, you know, I'm obviously a big sports fan, and you have those sports moments in your life where you know exactly where you were and you can describe your feeling, and it's you know, it's almost like you were there yesterday. And I've heard so many of those little stories over the years of uh, real personal stories to people that is pretty neat.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big impact.
What's your number one story, sort of as a fan or player, you know, that sticks with you, that feels ever present, where the emotions were high and feels like yesterday?
All right, so I went to USC, and so I'm a big USC football fan. I was at the Bush Push game at Notre Dame. My only time at Notre Dame. I was on the sidelines, and so it's 4th and 8, and I'm right there where Matt Leinart looks up, Dwayne Jarrett, audibles, boom, 4th and 8. They complete it down the sideline. Ultimately, they punch it in. That's one that's very memorable, and I feel like two of the greatest sports moments I had were within the same year, within months, as a fan. And it was that one at Notre Dame, which was amazing. But then a couple months later, on the other side of the ledger, we were at the Rose Bowl for USC Texas when Vince Young and the Longhorns outlasted SC for the national championship. So it was like the other side of the ledger of like crushing, but like we're sitting in the stands and with my buddies, and that game got over with, and as bummed out as we were that they lost, like I remember us just standing there and like clapping, almost like what a amazing game and performance both teams. They just got us that day, but those were two moments within the same year in my fandom that were pretty awesome.
Yeah. Looking back, when you reflect on your time with the Yankees as a player,
mm-hmm.
you know, you had the ankle injury. That changed everything.
Knee.
You know? Knee. I'm sorry, knee injury.
Yeah.
Playing hoops, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Did you make the basket?
No, I was so my brother-in-law was in town, and it was a Friday, and I worked out that morning with my trainer, and I didn't do my cardio because I had to do something, and then my brother-in-law was going to play basketball at like LA Fitness. I don't even remember the place exactly, but like on a Friday night, my wife and I, we weren't doing anything, so I'm like, yeah, I'll go with you just to move around a little bit. And you know, a few minutes in, it's not like I'm mixing it up like boxing out, and you know, I'm just moving, right? And we're on defense, and this guy saves the ball out just under the basket and kind of flips it, and I'm going the other way to, you know, I'm out around the free throw line towards the 3-point line, and it's going over my head almost like a pass, right? So I'm going to start taking it the other way, and this guy just came in and wiped me out. So it was kind of brutal. Yeah, that's how that happened.
And that couldn't have been a fun conversation called the Yankees, huh?
No, so you know, I had torn my ACL in 2000, and this was very different actually, because I tore the ACL again in the same knee. This was much more violent and painful. I was like, and I was driving home, and yeah, I knew obviously something was wrong, and we got that news that it was my ACL again. So, kind of sucked.
Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So I take it you don't still hoop then?
No, I'll go play horse with you or something, or yeah, I'm
That's what
not
I'm down to. I retrieve.
I'm like an alligator, one way at a time now. Like none of this Adderall. Like I don't want to play tennis. I know this pickleball stuff's big. Like I feel like that's a way for me to go. Like for
Yeah,
all that
that
I've
has
had
me
done to
injured.
my knee and being 51 years old, I'm actually doing pretty well. Like I don't have a lot of problems. I'm able to work out. I'm able to move. I'm able to run. But like guarding you is not doesn't sound great.
You can teach it, but yeah, you don't have to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Dad, you retired when I beat you when I was 15. You were like, nah. The next time I said, come on out when we were in the Poconos, you're
Right.
like, no, I'm good.
Then he
And
came
then
back against Scott Service and Edgar Martinez, and you know
yeah,
Yeah.
I played a
how
game. I
that
don't know if you
ended.
heard about that, Boonie. And I blew out my left Achilles. Who the heck touched? Who tripped me? Nobody touched you.
Oh,
Just went
geez.
boom.
He
Yeah,
came back at like 66 to play a pickup
yeah.
game. He hadn't played in
That's
20 years.
that's a whiff. That's a whiff.
Yeah.
Stay in your
Not
lane.
a good
Stay in your
move.
lane, man.
Oh, I have. Trust me. You get into broadcasting.
Yeah.
What was the impetus for that?
One of the things I see a lot of times with players, and fortunately, I saw this even when I was going through it when I was a player, is especially guys that you know made some money or don't have to go to work right away, don't have to, and I totally get it. Like you play 10 years, you play 12 years, maybe more, you're able to make a career of it. Now you're 35, 38, whatever you are, and you just want to take a break from the grind a little bit and like, oh, I'm going to golf and just chill out and I don't have to go work right away. And I always felt like that can be a little bit of a curse, like guys, and they get out of sight, out of mind, and then they get a little bit lost and like, what am I going to do? So I knew I wanted to, get back into something right away. I knew I wanted to stay in the game. I wasn't sure if it was doing something with a team or what, but um, the broadcasting thing kind of came natural and happened kind of quick. My last year was 2009. I actually did a radio series in the division series, the Dodgers and the Cardinals that year with Boog Shambi on ESPN radio. It was my first
Good
time
call.
ever
Yeah.
getting behind the mic doing a game and I loved it. I ended up doing some stuff with MLB Network during the playoffs, and then went through the car wash and the hiring process with ESPN in the fall or in the winter and spring, and I got to do 8 awesome years with ESPN, and I loved it.
I remember seeing you in 16. You came to Wrigley. We were there, and it was great catching up with you then. Yeah, I can tell you enjoyed yourself doing that.
I did, and it's a way of like it kept me in the game. It kept me, relevant and like my face in the game, and so
Yeah.
and it keeps you current and being in that realm, whether you walk into a front office or go into coaching or go into broadcasting, when it made me stay current and made me
Yeah.
stay up to speed with all the things that were happening within the game. um, you're watching all the time, so I feel like it helped prepare me in some way for what I'm doing now.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into coming into the 25 season. First of all, I'm going to make a supposition here that you're like most athletes I know. You probably remember the losses more than you remember the wins. How tough was it for you to shake? Getting so close to the World Series a few months ago.
Very hard.
Yeah.
You never shake it.
Yeah.
One of the things I came in and right after the game and talked to the guys about was like, hey man, this is going to hurt forever. This is going to sting forever. Like,
Yeah.
um, you know, we've had some really tough endings here since I've been here. The 19
Houston.
ALCS Altuve homer, like you never get over that. But you also, especially me, I've been in this game my entire life. You keep moving. Like that's this
Have to.
game. That's the grind of this game. It's like that's going to stick with you forever. It's going to be painful forever, but it's like you also got to get through it and over it and past it, and it's on to the next. And we're trying to win a world championship, and we're trying to get ready to do that here in 2025. So you have to move on. You know, but it's, the losses definitely stick with you a little bit more.
Next pitch is something you hear guys say all the time. Having a long off season after that happened, have you been in contact with the guys? Because, next pitch doesn't happen until months later in that case.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but more it becomes normal interaction. Checking on guys. I also try and give them their space. I'll check in on, around the holidays. Their position coaches obviously work a lot closer with them as far as especially the pitching guys and making sure they're you know following their throwing programs and where they're at and all that. But it's funny you say next pitch. Like I say that's one of the things I talk about. Like when we do get to the postseason is like like learn from everything, process everything that happens in the game, but don't get bogged down by any of it. Successful, whether it was a good thing or a mistake, like because the next pitch is too damn important. So that is how that's sports. You got to keep moving.
I'm a sports technology executive, and when my ADD, prevents me from moving on to the next thing, I'll tell myself, next pitch, let's go.
You got to be that way.
Most people aren't in the sports domain, but how they can apply that next pitch mentality to their lives, like Jared was saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. It certainly applies in sports, and even personally, like, in my playing career, you certainly go through ups and downs, and some of the there was a couple of times where I went through a prolonged slump, where it really just eats at you, and part of it is your brain gets in the way, and you don't want to fail, you don't want to, and you got to get to a point of. I remember in it was 2001. Man, I was struggling. No, wait. I'm sorry. 2002. 2002, I got off to such a tough start the first 2 months of the season. I'm just like, and you're just grinding, you're pressing, all of those things, and it's like, you got to get to that point in sports and in life. Like, I got to a point of like, I'm going to prepare my butt off. I'm going to be ready to go, but I'm not going to obsess on the results, especially in a game of failure. Like, almost not care about the results. Like, do everything you need to do before the game to be ready, prepared, boom. Now go out there and just play the game. And when you can truly get to that point, it's one thing to say it. There were a couple of times in my career where I was going through it, where I got to that point where it was like, screw it, I don't care about the result. I really don't. I don't care anymore. I'm gonna be ready to go, but I'm gonna go let the chips fall where they may. Man, that's liberating. That freed me up a lot. And I learned. I'll never forget this. Help me with this and kind of moving forward a little bit. In 1999, that year I talk about, again, it's my first really established season where I'm the guy at third base. We're playing the Indians in Cleveland, and they were 99 Indians, right? Out, they were great,
Loaded.
right? And this is Cincinnati Battle of Ohio, right? Summertime, we're in Cleveland. It's a big deal, and I'll never forget. It's a big spot in the game, later part of the game. Manny Ramirez comes up, first and second, hits a rocket, or just hits into a double play. Boom, boom, boom. He's running back from first base across, like it was a big spot in the game, big double play. He runs back across the field to the Indians dugout, runs right by me at third base, and just kind of runs by me, looks at me, and goes, like, oh, well. And it was like, Manny had that.
Yeah.
That obviously he was an amazing hitter, but and you hear stories about him being like a hitting savant and how much he poured into hitting and all that and how much he worked at it. But there's a level of, you get between the lines, now let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, no question. Hey, so you don't get Soto. He goes across town.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I spoke to you right after I get signed up by you guys. You really like what Cash and the boys did to replenish the fold, if you will.
No doubt. You know, first of all, I don't want to sugarcoat, like, us missing out on Soto was, you know, a gut punch, and like
Yeah.
we desperately wanted him back. But yeah, I think the pivot that Cash and the boys made was excellent. Addressed some needs. I think have brought in, you know, 3, 4, 5 really good players that are going to be core pieces for us this year, and so, you know, we'll look a little bit different this year. But that's the thing, you know, you never have this perfect team. You're always trying to, and you go into each off season, and it may look a little bit different every year. Last year, a lot of what we did was built on, you know, we had consistency on our rotation, but then, you know, those two boys in the middle back to back going to the post 160 times together was pretty powerful.
Yeah, no question. Hey, I keep hearing some buzz about Judge at first base. You thinking about doing something like that?
No. Now I've had Judgy not mess around, but, like, you know, do some things over there the last couple off seasons, just so, you know, one day it may be something that we do. But no, I don't have any plans to have him do that this year.
All right. Dominguez, is he poised for a breakout? Because boy, if you get his stick going, switch hitter, you know,
yeah,
super talented kid to go with these new dudes that you got in.
Yeah, he's capable. I'm excited about him. He is really talented, great kid. He's going to get that opportunity. You know, he's got to go.
Where are you going to play him?
I'm going to try. Left field is where we're going to focus on him. You know, because I feel like with Bellinger, we're getting a really good center fielder. But also, there's going to be a lot of days where I feel like Grish will be in there. You know, like say Giancarlo's out of the lineup or out, and I want to DH Judge. With Bellinger, I don't have any issue. I feel like I can move him anywhere on the diamond. So on those days where I got to get Grish in there, he's a premium defender in center field.
No doubt.
I don't want to lose that. And I don't want to move Jason back and forth necessarily.
Okay.
You know,
all right.
Whereas Bellinger, I feel good about moving him anywhere on the diamond on a given day.
All right. I only saw, as with the Mariners, I only saw you guys like 6 times last year, but I know what I heard. I know I saw. What's up with the base running? You're going to have a base running clinic the first couple of weeks in spring training. What was that all about?
Well, we always do. We actually poured a lot into the base running side of things last year. And actually, in a lot of ways, it improved a lot.
Okay.
You know, it becomes noise, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy anytime there's an out made on the bases. It's something that will continue to be a focus. I think we're going to be much more athletic this year. Like when we got Jazz at the part of our problem last year, especially in the first half of the season, was we just had, you know, 3, 4 guys in the lineup that were really below average runners. So more of our issue was not being able to take an extra base or go first to third or score on a base hit, those kind of things. I do feel like we're trending much more athletic. Like Dominguez is a really good runner. Obviously, Volpe's a really good runner. Bringing in Jazz is an elite runner. Bellinger, he can move. Goldie, is a really good athlete and a really good base runner. You know, Cabrera is going to get probably more of an opportunity that can run. Judgy moves well. So Wells behind the plate for a catcher moves well. So we're going to be overall much more athletic, and hopefully that serves us well, especially with, you know, some of the rules and stuff, the game, how it's moving. You know, it's an important part of the game.
Yeah. What do you think of the Dodgers' big spend?
Whew.
Spending.
Yeah, they ain't messing around. So they keep. But, you know, we're here at the end of January, and a lot of teams, us included, think we have a good team, but it's all on paper right now. And
no question.
We all got to go do it.
Amen. Analytics and instinct. How do you mesh? How do you deal with those two factors?
I mean, there's a lot of information that is all part of your preparation that you get on a daily basis. But again, as we've talked about some on this on this podcast, like once you get into the game, it's all just that's been part of your prep and poured into you, and like shaped some decisions you make. But now we get in that game at 7 o'clock. We're playing and
Yeah.
we're watching.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. How have you, as a player, a former player, been around, baseball life, broadcaster, manager? How do you, on this big stage in New York, how do you how is it handling the criticism and whatnot? And you got eyeballs, you got microscopes on you all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
I know it's part of the sign when you sign up, but how are you handling that?
Pretty well. One thing I talk to our guys about throughout the year is, having a perspective. I have a strong faith, strong family, and whether we're flying high and things are going as well as can be expected, or you're going through a tough moment, there's things in life that are happening all around us, to each of us, that are much more significant than what we're doing. At the end of the day, we're playing a game. It's our livelihood. We pour everything into it. It's been my life. It matters, right? But at the same time, try and step back every now and then and say, we're playing a game, and try and have that little bit of perspective, especially when you get wound up in it.
Yeah, and on that note too, when I know I've health issues, you had the heart situation. Uh, how long ago was that, and what kind of changes did that make for you? Physically, emotionally, the whole.
It's one of those things that probably just sharpens your perspective. Knowing how fleeting life can be. We're not promised tomorrow. My best friend lost one of their sons to cancer this past year, and it's like things like that, stop you in your tracks and make you realize what we get to do is ultimately a blessing, and it's and unfortunately sometimes it takes horrible things happening to put things in perspective. But regardless of good or bad, we try and have that perspective as we go through this.
Leadership. You're in a position of leadership, and have learned from the best. What can you impart on that subject about being a great leader to folks, whether they're in sports or in another walk of life, business or otherwise?
Again, I treat everyone different. Okay, that's part of it. But I think one thing you have to do as a leader, or try to do, and sometimes you are very successful at it, sometimes you could be better at it, but is when you are the leader, like trying to establish relationship with the people that you're influencing, and hopefully with that, they realize that you care about them and their career and what they're doing. And if you can establish that relationship, because ultimately there's going to be things that come up that are there's great things and great conversations to be had, but there's going to be things that maybe they disagree with or don't like, or um, and I feel like if there's a relationship established, and this person at least knows that I care about them and their livelihood and who they are and their family, it's easier to have that difficult conversation. And we can agree to disagree sometimes. But if they know it comes from a place that I don't take it lightly, any tough decision that I have to make, hopefully that's something that, serves us all well.
Okay, here for a few quick hitters right here. What is your favorite baseball tradition or perhaps unwritten rule?
I don't know if it's unwritten rule, but one thing that I loved my entire life and got taken away the last couple years, and I heard they're bringing it back this year, is the All-Star game, the uniforms. Got to wear the team uni, not this.
Yeah,
So
yes.
one of my favorite things about the All-Star game was seeing like the wrong home uniforms in the wrong ballpark. So like whoever the home team is, so this year it's in Atlanta, and I'm getting to manage the game this year, so I'm excited about that. But in Atlanta, so the National League teams like seeing a Dodger uni in Atlanta's stadium, seeing a Reds uni in a Dodger, like it always like jumped off the screen to me, and something I always loved, and it's been taken away here these last couple of years, but I heard it's coming back, so I'm excited about that.
Very cool. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your favorite ballpark to visit besides obviously Yankee Stadium?
Whew. Um, I would say I love going to Dodger Stadium. I played well there as a player. So that always factors in a lot. Like how'd you perform when you played? There's just something cool and classic and different about it. Look, I think there's so many great places now. I mean, we are playing in cathedrals for the most part, and there really is something I always look forward to. Almost every place we go, almost. Um, but Dodger Stadium is one that with that sunset over the backdrop with the palm trees, like I think that's pretty cool.
Okay, favorite go-to meal after the game?
On, ooh, I mean, we get fed well. On every other week on getaway day on a Sunday when we're flying out, we'll have these street tacos that they bring in. They make them. They make all the tortillas, everything right there. That's pretty tough to beat. Some of the Italian that we get, especially being in New York, and some of the places that cater for us after a ball game are pretty good. But I do love the street tacos that we bring in probably once or twice a month.
That's cool. You get a lot of the stores in Arthur Avenue. Some of the Italian joints up there, they cater for you every now and then.
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. I try to
That's a
get out
quick
there.
answer.
We try to get out there once or twice a winter too. Like, Robbie Kakuza and I will bring whoever's here in the winter in the clubhouse. We'll take a group over there once or twice in off season too.
Nice.
Usually around the holidays.
The last one.
You sound like a foodie. I'm gonna go ask this one: is best dinner guests, sports or otherwise?
Somebody I'd like to hang with. Sports, theater.
I don't want to get too political on this show, but I love to see the interaction of the presidents.
Yeah, I love that too. Yeah,
like Jimmy Carter's funeral, just seeing the interaction of those
yeah.
presidents, like how they're
Great point.
trying to read it all. I would love to have all the living
Trying to lip read, right?
We'll sit down and break bread and just have it out.
You're a Yankee manager. You might be able to pull that off. That would be a riot.
Wouldn't it?
Hey, everything's off the record. Nothing on the record.
Hey,
boys be boys. Let's have that.
Mics, just you're sitting in Carbone and in Soho and having a meal and hearing them like see how they talk to one another for real.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna throw that out in the ether. See if somebody picks it up. Make it happen.
Yep.
Boonie, hey man, thanks so much for your time, and looking forward to working with you every day. And go Yankees, go Eagles.
Good being on with you guys. Good to see you.
Hi everybody, Dave Sims from the Hey Now podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us here on the Hey Now podcast.
I can't stay.